All right, ESPN this morning, I was reading this article and they came out with a list of the most overrated and underrated players in the league. And Bradford Doolittle, he put this piece out, and there is a little bit in the article. I will link it in the description describing how these players were rated. Why are they underrated? Why are they overrated? And so I'm going to read that to you before getting into the underrated and overrated players. It says here how the players were rated. Bradford says here, I've narrowed the active player list down to position players who have played in each of the past 4 seasons. A player's reputation is built over time, so younger players are still finding their place. A minimum of 11 WAR over the 4 seasons was needed for consideration, as we're considering those who might reasonably be considered star players. I then rated each player for performance using combined WAR figures from Baseball Reference and Fangraphs and support in Phase 1 All-Star balloting and in postseason MVP balloting. I added up the totals for each player over the past 4 years in both performance and recognition, ranked them in both areas, and then looked at the biggest disparities between rankings. The recognition factor for 2024 is based only on All-Star voting, as we're still a few months away from awards season. So that's a big description there, obviously. And so again, just pretty much adding the WAR over the 4 seasons, or excuse me, the WAR, combined WAR figures, and the support from postseason MVP and All-Star. So it seems like using the All-Star voting to determine the popularity and using the WAR and the MVP voting to determine like how actually good this player is, how much value this player has. And so he starts off with 10 players who are underrated. Ian Happ, Brian Reynolds, JP Crawford, Brandon Nimmo, Christian Walker, Nico Horner, Dalton Varsho, Willie Adames, Matt Chapman, and then another guy that was in this group was Ha-Seong Kim. As you see here, 66 disparity points. Performance rank was 37th. His support rank was 103rd. So you just see like he didn't get the support that the performance says that he should. If we're basing the support, we're basing off of like how much support this player should get. It should be what the performance is, if that makes sense. Another player on the underrated list having a down season, Kim typifies a kind of player who gets persistently overlooked. Basically, it's the type of player who creates a disproportionate amount of his value in categories other than hitting. Kim has been above average at the plate in a couple of his big league seasons, but where he shines is in the field and on the bases. He has put up 15.3 baseball reference WAR since 2021, but has yet to appear in his first All-Star game. Now, the All-Star game voting, let's talk about that, about him being underrated there. At the position of shortstop, he's not going to be voted in as an all-star. There are bigger names there at shortstop, whether that's Xander. I know that was more last year, but Francisco Lindor, Trey Turner, guys like that, there's bigger names out there. Those guys are going to get the votes over Ha-Seong Kim. They just are. Padres fans, the Ha-Seong Kim chants, all of that, he's loved here, but it's an all MLB fan vote. He's just not going to get that. So I understand him being underrated there. And defense, it's something that's not talked about. You go through the MVP voting and the stats that they read off. Is it about defense, or is it about how many homers? What's his OPS plus? What's the on base? What's the slug? And Kim, he is more of a defense guy over offense. And then offensively this year, yeah, it's been disappointing. I think fans, we were expecting him to maybe take a step forward or be the same production-wise as he was last year, and that hasn't been the case. So I think some Padres fans actually, and I've already seen this on social media, some are like, well, Kim, no, he's not underrated. Some may think he's overrated because of the Kim chants and like he shouldn't be getting that based on his performance and all that. But like what I would say on that, He's a fan favorite. He has the chant. He's provided value to this team. He works hard. He hustles. He cares. And so I think that's what makes him that fan favorite. I don't think he's the most like overrated player in the league. I don't think he's the most overrated player in Padres history or anything like that. I think he does have value. I think he does add value to this Padres team. In Major League Baseball, I can definitely see why he is ranked underrated because he's one of those guys. And I think there's a lot of teams in baseball that their fan base talks about that player, but Major League Baseball as a whole, that player doesn't get talked about. And yeah, I could see Kim being that guy. Now, overrated, there was a list of overrated players, and Mike Trout is on this list, by the way. His performance ranked 46th, support rank 17th, negative 29 in disparity points. And I get the whole overrated stuff because, like, he's not on the field, the production, it's not what it was. But I I'm sorry. For me, it's hard to say that Mike Trout is an overrated player when he is on the field. I get it if you want to ding him not being on the field, the injuries. Um, Says here, no matter how great you are, you can't accumulate value for your team when you're not on the field. That I understand that, but I guess you're just not going to hear it from me that Mike Trout is overrated. That's not going to happen. Teoscar Hernandez is on here, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Paul Goldschmidt. And then the last guy on this was Manny Machado, -7 in disparity points. So it's not as high as Goldie or Vlad or Teoscar or Trout, -7, but still ranked as overrated. Performance rank, 21st, support rank, 14th. Let me switch this here to Manny. So you'll see that there, the disparity, the support rank, performance rank. And here's what ESPN has to say. Machado's story mirrors that of Goldschmidt. He's a great player and is recognized for it, but his support has held up a little stronger than his performance. Machado was down to 2.9 baseball reference WAR in 2023, and this year he's on pace to record his worst big league season in some categories, though he's trending up lately. Despite his down 2024 season, he finished second in National League fan balloting at third base. So Bradford Doolittle here, the writer, is saying that Machado is great, but he's just looking at, okay, what's the support that he got in fan vote? What's the production? What's the MVP ballot? What's, the war as well? And I could see, yeah, how using this ranking system, what he used here, yeah, I could see how Manny would be in the overrated category. But I think we got to also note in the All-Star game balloting, how do fans approach it? There are some fans that probably vote for every player that is having the best first half of the season. Who is the best player at that position, stats wise? And I know OPS is on that MLB.com balloting. I forget. There's probably some version of WAR that's on there, but a lot of it's offensive numbers that are put up there. It's not what they're doing on defense. It's not the overall package. Um, So some fans may go that way, but some fans may be like, I want to see the biggest stars. I want to see the faces of the game all on the field at the same time. That's what the All Star game is. And sure, we can reward the other guys, the smaller name guys that are having a good season so far, and they can come in as bench guys, come in when those other guys are, you know, taking a shower, talking to the media, and they're out of there. So what I would say again with that all-star stuff, Manny has built a following. He has produced at an elite level in most of his career. And so he deserves to be up there on the all-star game ballot because fans want to see the biggest name players. They want to see the best guys. And maybe it's not the best guys for that season, but it's the best guys for the career who we know them to be. And Manny Machado in third base in that category, he falls under that list. Just like Nolan Arenado falls under that, like, talking about, that's what I'm referring to. Big name third baseman. It's Manny and it's Nolan Arenado. And Austin Riley has crept into that. There's others, Alec Boehm. But it's those two guys. So I understand that. And performance based, yeah, I think Manny would say it as well. Last year and part of this year, it's been disappointing, his performance on the field. But for me, it's kind of like Mike Trout. I'm not going to sit here and say that Manny is overrated. You can call me biased, whatever, but I watch pretty much every Manny Machado game that he plays in. And do I get on him sometime? Like I got on him earlier this year when he wasn't hustling down the line against the Mets. But I respect the heck out of Manny Machado for him playing through injuries. The stories, Greg Garcia came on the show, I think last year, talking about how Manny didn't think he was going to play. It's 10 minutes before the game. He's on the trainer's table and he's out there and he plays. He finds a way to play. And he knows that his team needs him. He's one of the captains, if the captain of the Padres, the leader of the team. And so he leads by example by showing those younger guys, showing everyone that you have a job to do. The pain that you feel one day, you can deal with that. You'll have time to rest that later. You can rest that after the game. Your job is to go out there and perform. And so Manny's numbers have not been the same, or maybe weren't the same last year, beginning of this year, as they were in 2022. And I think he should have won the MVP because he was dealing with injuries. He's dealing with coming back from the surgery that he had. And he said earlier this year that he wasn't going to be 100%. So, Manny, he's a great player. And this system that was was used by Bradford Doolittle, it's about the voting and it's about his numbers. And it doesn't take into account some of the other stuff, like playing through injury. And so I could see why Manny is in that overrated category. But for me, making this video, giving my thoughts, I don't have to only look at that criteria. I can look at the whole package. And I'm just not going to sit here and say that Manny Machado is an overrated player. Because I think that fans, if we were to vote, if we were to put rankings together, like who are the top third baseman in baseball right now? And what would we do? We'd probably go to like Fangraphs or Baseball Reference War. In fact, I'll do that right now. I'm going to go to Fangraphs and I'm going to look up batting numbers, which will bring up F4 when I do that. Among third basemen for the 2024 season, I don't know if there's a minimum at bats here. Qualified. So Manny Machado right now ranks 13th in F4. He's at 2. Jose Ramirez is the name that we'd bring up. Rafael Devers, Matt Chapman, Alec Boehm, Alex Bregman, Nolan Arenado, Austin Riley, Manny Machado, right? Are baseball fans ranking Manny Machado as number 1? Are they ranking him as number 2? If we were to do our research, probably not. So is he overrated then? It's not like we're putting him all the way there at the top. I'm just giving Manny Machado the respect that I think he deserves. And that, I mean, recently he has been producing for the Padres. And again, I think we've got to consider what he was dealing with going into this season. He was playing hurt, obviously, last year, and I think he played too much last year. I thought the Padres were not going to make the postseason, and I thought it was best, hey, just go shut it down. Why are you continuing to play? But he kept playing until the Padres were mathematically eliminated, and his production was not the same as when he is healthy. So his numbers went down, and therefore this is where the disparity points come in and why he's looked at as overrated here in this list by ESPN by Bradford Doolittle. So I understand it. But again, I'm not going to be in that crowd saying that Manny is overrated. I'm not going to say that Mike Trout is overrated. Yeah. And I can see how Ha-Seong Kim is underrated when you're looking at the numbers through what Bradford Doolittle was doing here. But give your thoughts, obviously. Just gave my thoughts here on Kim and Manny. Those were the two Padres mentioned in this article. I'll put the full article, the link, in the description so you guys can go see that for yourself. But yeah, I just had some thoughts on that.